I'm just
IRL's
a little bit
picking up
behind. It's
again.
okay though.
It's
It's all
all
right.
right. All right. Well, we're going to start this off by saying, YouTube, what's going on? It's your boy Boda back in the building with my wonderful co-hosts. We got Tweacz
What's up, guys?
and TheKryptman.
Yep.
Yes, we are here to discuss a more general topic. We've talked about doing things like this in the past, but we've really just focused on current events. But now that things are very slow, we can kind of move on to what I want to start talking about here. And you guys can help me out with that. And that is how to approach building out units. It's a very common question for new players. And it's, I'd say, a common question for even to mid-game people, because the progression in this game is very slow. It requires patience and a lot of learning. There is a learning curve to it. So, yeah, I think you guys can help me out with that a lot.
Well, I can start off. The idea behind building units, and it's so variable between accounts. The first thing you need to understand about building a unit is knowing what's out there. And a big help of that is being comfortable and researching your own stuff on pretty much Lake's Goldmine site. That's like the main thing that you should start out trying to find what skills are good, and what if you see a skill on a build and or like in chat and you're wondering what it is, use that site. That's like the premium resource that this entire community has and uses for just about everything. With that said, building units on your own account, especially if you don't have everything or even just a lot, it's strictly up to RNG for your pulls. So, I mean, there's some general arcs that are going to be very common, but like we've talked about before, RNG is RNG. If you're going to have it, you have it. If not, then
Gotta
you
work
can't
with
build
what you
it.
got.
Yeah, right.
Which is one of the fun things about this game, especially like approaching it as a person who has, a whaled out account. It's fun to like start a free to play account and try to complete the game with that as kind of an additional hurdle,
Absolutely.
because it forces you to look at things a little bit differently. It's not like, okay, I've got everything, I'm gonna put my standard PDPS kit on, It's okay, what do I have out of the standard PDPS kit, and what can I substitute for the things that I'm missing? One of the things this
Right.
game does extremely well is it offers you a lot of options for like how to get to places in terms of like what you want your units to accomplish. I don't know if you guys saw it, but I believe Tweacz put up a new video last night about the 98 SC Wave 1 Sardine start.
Yes.
Yeah, that was
And for that we were screwing around a little bit. It was Tweacz, Demos, and we were just playing around, and it's like, all right, well, how do we get to cap? And I didn't have Soldier Slayer or Special Boost taught to Medine yet, so instead I went with like Ifrit, Spirit Ifrit, and Berserking, because that's like 50% damage. It's roughly equivalent, but you're still losing or Special Boost, and it's more expensive. But in any case, that got me almost to the point where I was capping without using like the standard fare. Okay, we're gonna go Sorcerer Slayer, we're gonna go Special Boost, we're gonna go Sharp Eyes, because I didn't have Sharp Eyes on there either. So there's a lot of ways to like get to whatever the goal is, whether it's to hit cap, whether it's to prevent your units from dying to special like certain attacks like Pablo's ult and things like that, whether it's to make like a support unit. There's a bunch of different ways, and you really just got to tinker around with what you got. Switch things out. Don't be afraid to go into a fight that you might lose just to test stuff out. That's half the fun.
Right. For sure.
and
But
one thing I can't appreciate, because I know I remember I re-rolled for, what did I re-roll for? I forget. A few months ago, I just like played like a re-rolled account, and what am I talking about? It was the Taiwan server, right? And I
Yeah.
started a new account, and I was like, remembering what I wanted to prioritize, right? Starting on a new account and to maximize my damage, to maximize my sustain. And you know what was really important? Our arcs at the very
Yeah.
beginning.
Yeah.
Very, very important. Like fast aura, fast brave. You're getting like the attack up maxes. Some of the attack up 2, I think, is on one of the Rivizard arc. You
Proud
got
Force.
Proud Force, especially without Icy Guardian.
Big old chunky survivability.
A huge thing from early game is if a unit doesn't have it, is acquiring Sharp Eyes pretty early. Getting that Sandworm for that dual wield, like prioritizing that just to maximize your damage because you know you're end up going to use it. Yeah, Panda says Pose of Glory. Yes, for units that don't have it, you're gonna want that. Like that's
Pose of Glory is so game changing, and it's
huge
2 SC.
A huge stepping stone for physical DPS. I mean, just and it's like crit 2, like in fast crit, and like trying to build a crit build on your physical DPS without everything in their kit.
I thought you said Crypt 2, and I was like, what did I do? But you said Crypt 2.
Fair enough.
Crypt 2. What did I do?
But yeah, like it was just really, really refreshing to because having everything in the game on this account, like Crypt and I both do pretty much in demos.
More or less.
It's very easy to forget priorities on things that you're gonna need to have, or when like newer players or even mid-game players, they're probably not gonna have everything, like what to prioritize. And there's a few certain packets of like skills that just aren't necessary for certain roles.
Exactly. And that's kind of what I want to try and accomplish, or at least do our best in this, is identify your roles, right? Your standard roles, because that's where that's where you kind of get to the next level. Is can you take a bunch of skills and try to build the ultimate hybrid? Sure. But when you're reaching end game, when you're reaching later in the game, you want to focus right? It's about team comp. You want to take each member in that team and design them to specifically fill a role. That's what's going to elevate your thought process when you're building these units. Would you guys agree?
Yes,
absolutely.
Right.
And it's very difficult to build a Swiss Army knife unit, right? Like there's very few units that you're going to be able to build one time. And sorry about that. Yeah, so it's very hard to build a Swiss Army knife unit. You're gonna have to like build more specialized stuff, because like you're not gonna build a unit the same way for say like Reaper as you are for like Pablo, right? It's different damage types. There's different things you have to worry about.
Yep.
There's different creature types in those fights, so you're gonna want to like switch your slayers around.
Yep.
So when people are like, well, what's a build for? I don't know. What's a build for Sekis?
For what are you doing? Yep.
Right.
Yep.
Right. The immediate follow-up question is, for what? Like, what are you trying to accomplish with that unit?
To add to that, Crypt, I had this little reflection earlier when I guess it was yesterday, when I was moving around all of my builds to do like that, not like the flex per se, but like the DPS test against Daura with all those physical DPS.
Mm-hmm.
And I was just like thinking about how many times I've switched around my units builds. It's
like 10,000.
I mean, seriously, like it's literally every single time I go into a battle, I double check my builds.
I believe it.
I switch at least one thing on my defense team for arena per day.
Yeah.
whether it's a character or a spell or whatever, switching
right.
Who has what arc. I like to keep people on their toes.
I mean, and it's cool because like the thing about that is when people are relatively new to the game, they're not going to know where things are. But if I'm very quick at switching my builds around, so like I know what I want and I know where all my skills are. So like,
and you will gain that. You gain that knowledge over time. Like even that was intimidating to me when I saw how often you and Crypt were switching your skills and you knew exactly where to go. Like, and I'm thinking, oh my God, I'm just trying to get my first build to where I'm comfortable. But but just through playing and the repetition and then understanding, it comes a lot more naturally over time.
It really does.
It's real funny because Tweaks and I learned the skill order in entirely different ways. He knows it almost entirely by default, and I know it almost entirely by skill cost.
Yes, that's the route I'm going. I'm going the same route as Crypt.
Yeah,
You guys are crazy.
yeah.
Yes,
I do switch
you
it.
guys make me sick.
Because
I
I'm
do switch it to default when I want to put like, all the HP ups or whatever
Right.
on. When I want just a solid block of them, or like the guard package. It's all together in the default view. But yeah, no, I learned most of the things by skill cost instead of by default like sorting position.
of the
The
same.
biggest reason I like default is because things are grouped as though they make sense
Yes.
to me,
Yes.
right?
Yeah,
So
for sure.
there's similar packages, right? So I'm just gonna explain this real quick. So I always know when something is missing out of, like, let's say I'm missing, if I have 4 out of 5 of these HP up stat, or I'm even missing HP up 200, but I know I'm missing HP up 2. I wouldn't have to go look at
Right. Right.
the 3 SC ones.
When
to find-
teaching skills, it's very useful in that way.
You're right, because I'm like, oh, where's Dragon Slayer? Oh, it should be right here. Oh, I should go teach it.
Right.
Like, it's just,
Right.
I mean,
I get
that's
that.
See,
like
for me,
the
it's
biggest-
where's Dragon Slayer? Okay, well that's 9.
That's 9. Yeah.
That's a 9. That one
Oh,
hangs
let's
out
go look
in the
through all the
9s.
9s. You are crazy.
No, it's totally fine, and it helps when I'm like, okay, I've got 6 SC
Yes.
left to spend.
Yes.
What all can I put in there?
That's where it helps me.
This is my favorite section right here. Right here.
All the
This
damage
dot is
multiplier.
icon right there, because I know
Yeah.
exactly, if I don't have it, I know exactly what I need.
Mhm.
Those are
Like,
like the
all right,
conditional damage boosts.
Right. This is the juicy section. Right here.
Yes. Okay. Well, speaking of that section, not to cut you guys off, but I think DPS is naturally the first role we should focus on here.
Sure.
It's the one that everyone, I'd say maybe not everyone, but the majority of us enjoy the most are those big fat damage caps.
Big PP damage.
Big PP damage. And one of the most important skills, I'd say, in concepts, I mean, I'll leave it up to you, Tweacz, where to start, but it's skills that increase the physical damage specifically.
Okay. So these are,
We can either back up or if you know.
I mean, for physical DPS, you're going. I mean, you have to start off in dual wield, because many units are going to be built if you finish their skill tree, and some of them have slayers in there, and some of them will have some high attack multipliers and all that kind of stuff. They're going to be hitting cap. So most physical DPS nowadays, you're going to need. This is like the best skill in the game. No joke for physical DPS. Dual wield.
And it's
Like,
not even close.
No.
It's not even.
No
close,
other
dude.
skill is even close to how effective
No.
dual wield is
It
because
is
of everything
nuts.
that it does.
And I know we harp on it a good bit because there's so many single wield fans out there, and I think
Shout out to JP.
that whole body of people that prefer single wield, I think use it canonically, not because it's better. And I think that's totally fine if you want to play however the way you want to play. But
Mhm,
the
mhm.
argument of DPS of single wield versus dual wield and all that kind of stuff, even with Kyle, who, and BB Shin, who look like they should be single wielding, but when in reality and mathematically they should not be,
Mhm,
because
mhm.
dual wield has so much benefit.
So
And we've gone over that, but
We have.
just quickly, it
Yeah.
doubles your hits. Yes, it does cut it down to 60%, but if you're capping, you're wasting damage. So
yeah,
you want to split that up into 2 different hits. It does double break, double on hit effects such as crits and pursuits and ailment procs and shockwave, like breaking guard, like that kind of stuff. It doubles everything. Like this is, while it looks like 0.0 SC on this, it is worth 14 SC, and it's honestly probably worth at least 40. Like the amount of stuff.
Shh, don't tell them that.
The amount of stuff it
Right.
actually does is incredible. For 14 SC.
insurmountable. It's
When-
way
when
more.
I read-
Yeah.
When I read about people saying, "Oh, I'd rather use that 14 SC somewhere else,"
You
Yeah,
don't get
find
that
14 SC
return.
that is that high value. Like
Right,
find
exactly.
14 SC in literally any other skills that gives you any combination. Hell, 25. I will give you 25 SC to try
Yeah.
to come up with something that competes with dual wield, and you're
It's
not going to
crazy.
succeed at it.
Yeah. So I think we could go on and on about dual wield, but I think I jumped the gun with just going straight into skills. I mean, you're on Lilibet, so what do you think about kind of identifying why she fits this DPS role, right? Because a lot of when building a unit is first looking at their kit and what it encompasses, and then determining what routes to take with them because of where they already start off.
For sure, and I mean that's where we always start. Like even before characters come out, there's a lot of us that'll look at their kit, and we can pretty immediately tell within some amount of variance because we don't know exact skill multipliers. We never see their auto attack until they come out, things like that. You can typically tell early on, like, okay, this unit's 1, good or bad, and 2, like, what is the role?
Right, but and like
I mean-
as you and Tweacz can do that, and now I can do that a little more than I used to be able to. But for the new and early mid game players, it's not always as easily as identifiable. A great example of that was V.
I mean,
Silence.
Yeah, Z was very aesthetically. You mean?
Not aesthetically, but there was, because he came with skills like MP up, there was just kind of this, I saw mixed first
He's a mage.
impression that he could really act as a mage, but when you actually know and you see the increased physical damage in his trait and all of the other skills that naturally increase his physical damage, that you wouldn't really see until it's pointed out to you for players that don't
So-
know how to identify it.
The biggest clues to being a physical DPS nowadays is one, they have essentially just Slayers in their kit. And Slayers don't work with magic, so you're going to use them as a physical DPS. Pretty much anyone that has Slayers is built as physical DPS straight off the bat by Aegis.
Sharp Eyes too is a pretty good
Sharp
giveaway.
Eyes, things you look for. You're looking for
Dual wield.
Maglion, because this is only physical attacks Maglion, especially for him. You're looking at things like dual wield, yes, that come innate. You're looking at things like Thaumaturgy Ring, that the higher than something that attributes physical attack. Now that's not always direct because AOG Lily, but
Yeah.
we don't talk about AOG
I
Lily.
mean, skill charges help to tell, but if the thing is, there's nothing in his kit at least that would be good for magic damage, right? Like he doesn't get the boosts, he doesn't get mega boosts, he doesn't get any really attacking spells that are substantial damage. Now, along that note, there are physical DPS that get spells. That doesn't mean they're a mage.
Like Lukiel.
Well, Lukiel, DeGrogue, Shift a little bit.
They even have their own specific magic spells, but they're
Specific,
still not
yeah.
mages.
Very
DeGrogue.
unique. Yeah, DeGrogue especially. But pretty much everything in his kit is doing multipliers for physical damage. So
Yeah.
And traits and stuff are things you want to look at as well.
Exactly. And that's kind of my point, is that the terminology is something you really need to pay attention to, because sometimes, at least especially early game for me, I found myself reading skills and just naturally glancing over the word physical. I would just see attack, right? I would see damage, and my brain would automatically skip the fact that it only applies to physical. So then, I think I saw a lot of that with V reviews, is that you'd see dark damage increase, and then the physical word would get skipped. So then people are thinking, oh, okay, I'm going to use a Biscate, I'm going to use these different dark spells, which is actually counterproductive.
A Biscate V.
That was the first, first
And I
spell
mean,
that came to mind.
you know, there are certainly things in his kit that synergize with, like, you can build him as a caster if you want to. You can do like ice caster using ghost Hime and make him like a silence, or I'm sorry, a curse afflictor with magic, which plays into his affliction kit. That's a thing you can do, but like that's not really what he's designed to do. Just because everyone is very, very flexible in this game does not inherently mean that like they're all going to be good or useful at everything.
Or optimal, yeah, optimal.
Or optimal for sure. You can certainly do a lot to push the boundaries in this game and use suboptimal units to do very, very hard content. You know, if you build them correctly, but you're gonna have an easier time if you stick people kind of in what is more designed to be their role.
Yep, yep. So,
but if you got 100 SC, you can do basically whatever you want with anybody.
right, yeah, that's more whale talk, but
Space whales.
so yeah, I mean, we didn't have much structure to that, but we talked about important factors in identifying your physical DPS. Is there anything else that we kind of want to go over? Obviously, your attack ups, your critical ups they're very easy skills to use for your physical DPS, but the real juices are in those slayers and conditional
here's the thing.
damage
what do
increases.
I have? 84 SC. I have this build for Daura, that level 100 quest, and you can see how many attack ups. And I have her built for strength, so you can see how many attack ups I used on her. What I got? 3 SC in attack ups, nothing in the magic ups, even though she gets multiplied for it. I have nothing, no help in crit ups. I don't even have proud force on because it's a boss battle. Like I don't need to heal. But what I do have are the multipliers, and what comes out of there, your biggest. So while attack ups and stuff and these basic stat boosts are important to an extent, things that multiply these in battle is what's going to be your bread and butter. Big boosts, big boosts like Fast Brave or Auto Brave that give 20% increase for 2 SC or 7 SC. You got your prize when you have a proud force sustain build, or you know you're going to be at full health. You have at full HP, you're going to have another 20% strength additive onto there. That's a huge boost for 4 SC. You have these Slayers. Slayers and Special Boost are some of the biggest damage multipliers in the game.
That's pretty much what brings you to cap a majority of the time with endgame content.
Because they are a separate multiplier, and like when you think about the one of the biggest things and toughest things about learning how to build for like max damage is learning what stacks with what and what is multiplied into each other.
What is multiplicative and what is additive?
Right. So that's a big reason why people struggle with making builds and end up throwing so much stuff into attack ups when you don't really need to do that.
It really has shifted so that most new units' base stats are high enough that just multiplying on top of those, both like Ardor and or not Ardor, like Pride, where you get the percentage multiplier on your
strength
base stat. You know, older units, you needed to buff up those base stats so you had something good to multiply off of. Now, it's not really so much that way. You can ignore a lot of the fundamentals for damage and just put on, like, the real big numbers and see really great success with it.
And you know what, Crypt? I think a big part of that is nowadays we have very, very good equipment that increases those base stats
for
quite a
sure.
bit.
For sure.
That helps a ton in not wasting SC in attack ups and the basic stats. But Slayers especially and Special Boosts. So let's talk about this. Normally, so a Slayer that you're going to be building for, you're going to need to, whenever we build for PvE content and bosses, you pick them based on the type of the enemy you're going to be fighting. Why do you do this? Because Slayers, it says physical attacks are effective against soldiers. Well, it doesn't tell you much.
It's
Every
a lot.
single physical attack is going to be 50. Slayers do regular attacks and skills. They do 50% extra damage to the enemy that is that type. Special boost, and you guys can quote me. I'm pretty sure I'm right on this, but it increases that specific damage by 50%. So it gives these two together give an overall 75% damage boost.
Right.
Almost double.
That's crazy.
Almost double, which is pretty nuts.
For like 15 SC total.
It's maximum 15 SC, right? 9 and 6 is sometimes they're 8 and 6. Some of the like weaker or like weirder slayers are going to be 8 SC. But for again, similar to dual wield, this is some of the juiciest damage multipliers you can possibly get.
And it's so modular. It's so easy to just like flip your slayer to whatever you need it to be.
Exactly.
That's one of the things that gets changed the most, honestly.
Yeah,
is just you switch your slayer to whatever you're going to be going against. Especially for units with built-in special boost. Oh, so good.
Oh my
so
god,
good.
yeah. It is. It really is that good. Now, and we're talking. This is more building towards because let's say general PvE content. Story, you don't really need to specify much. Story can be done, and so maybe some of the harder maps, you'll like the end battle and some of the like mid-tier battles. You might, if you're not built up far enough, you might need to be switching around, and we use slayers, but you really won't notice the true power of slayers until you fight endgame bosses and want to do sufficient damage. But Crypt is right. This stuff is so modular, and it's so easy to just go in and flop them around, because on pretty much every build that you have a physical DPS on, you're probably going to need to account 14 to 15 SC for these skills because they're just that good.
Yep.
Dual wield and slayer and your special boost. There's 29 of your SC.
Yeah,
right there.
I was gonna say 30. Just consider that booked.
Slayer plus special boost is 100%. I did think that originally, but I actually haven't looked at Lakeside in a while.
Right.
It's possible, but I don't know.
Yeah, I have no idea.
That being a central setup for DPS makes any unit that has any of those things innate, especially dual wield. Like dual wield innate is one of the biggest saves that a unit can have. But like units with multi slayers, like Brute Slayer on Logia, or Human Slayer on DeGrogue and Tsukasa and Dilmordo, those are incredible saves. Big fan of like. You've got all your human slayers built into DeGrogue, so you throw on like special boost and Godslayer, and congratulations, you basically kill everyone in the arena.
Divinity
like
Slayer.
every unit that anybody uses,
Divinity Slayer is another huge one.
Flatten them. Yeah. Divinity Slayer, yeah. Doesn't Nero have a
Nero
multi-slayer?
has Devil Hunter, which acts as a slayer for a unique set of types. Yes.
Interesting. I use him a lot, and I don't think I've ever read the text on what his Slayer is.
It's called Devil Hunter. I think it's like creatures, spirits, undead, and something else.
It's a bit weird.
It's weird. It's not as useful as things like Human and Divinity, but it comes in handy for sure.
For sure. Mm-hmm. he gets Slayer against Lagrimos.
Well, you know where he comes in a lot of use in PvP, and you know why he might be so useful in PvP? You had the mummy
damage.
Right. You had the mummy suit on. Well, I guess the slayers don't stack. So
that's the thing. Most of the time,
you
give a sorcerer slayer on him anyways. So like.
Right. It doesn't multiply into each other in that sense.
No.
If something has two typings because you've added a typing to it, you don't get both slayers on top of each other.
No, it's kind of like the maximum of the two.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's so Slayer is essentially binary, right? You either do slay or you do not slay.
Right.
There's no stacking of slaying. But you can still stack the damage multiplier from like special boost on there. And sometimes unique stuff, depending on how it's worded, will stack with that. But typically, that's not the way it works.
Okay. So yes, I mean that pretty much covers it. Like as soon as you start utilizing slayers on your DPS, you've got dual wield and your big strength multipliers like Brave and Pride, things like that. Your Sky High, Sky Lord surprise attacks.
Yeah, we can talk about the cost-effective stuff right now if you want.
Don't use Skylord.
We can
Ever.
do that, or I'm just looking at the time because I did want to cover multiple roles. So you tell me.
Yeah, let me just throw this stuff out there. I'm just gonna talk about these skills. These are some of the juiciest skills you can possibly get for damage. Sky High especially. If you ever want to throw a unit in the air, or leave the ground a tiny bit, Sky High is 20% damage boost. Fantastic for 4SC. Surprise attack and backstab are the juiciest skills in the game relative to SC cost. If you have an unflinchable enemy and can get behind them, like Pablo, like Reaper, stuff like that, it's literally 80% boost to your DPS if you're behind them, which is disgusting.
Or cheap.
Or very cheap. 6
Yeah.
SC for 80% damage. Like, that's crazy. And they multiply with everything else. Like, it's disgusting. Terramouth are some of the best in the game, but a little bit more traditional. These are 50% total damage boost if an enemy has any affliction. So that's any of the 6 statuses. Poison, blind, silence, curse, stun, illness. Like, any of those, getting huge PV damage. And then Maglion's important for some units, but I think the next ones that are the most important are the weapon boosts.
Oh,
Weapon
yes.
boosts are the bread and butter, or like another facet, or the bread and butter of the PDPS. You at least want, pretty much you mostly want at least one high boost for one of the weapons you're using. The best SC to damage ratio is going to be Sword High Boost, in my opinion.
30%.
Closely followed by Hammer. If it's a strength unit, Hammer High Boost, but I prefer Sword High Boost. Mostly because swords are so OP in this game. We have so many good swords. And the best swords. Like, the Capray sword is arguably my
Scarlet
favorite
Blade.
best sword in the game.
It is really good.
So I recommend, this is probably my favorite high boost. And then I end up using a lot of elemental attackers, so you're going to get machine high boost. Yes, that's on Solaris, and I'm sorry for recommending that, but it is one of the better high boosts because people do use.
It's all right. I have Solaris, so
Trisha love very
I'm not mad at it.
Speaking of elemental,
skill charges or whatever, then you have Sharp Eyes, probably one of the best multipliers in the game. For straight up 9 SC, consume a little bit of MP for 50% more damage. That's nuts. That's one of the best skills in the game. Some people come with an 8, but if you don't need MP regen, and you just want to rip something through with Sharp Eyes, that's a huge boost for 9 SC. And then, Berserker is also another permanent thing that I actually really, really enjoy. This is a straight up 30%. This is essentially Sword High boost, but for 8 SC instead of 9. And it'll harm you a little bit, but again, you can stack them both. Like, why not?
And
you should be able to sustain through the damage.
Yes,
that you're
it's only
taking.
13 to 15% HP every 6 seconds. Which, if you're running a crit Proud Force build, you should be able to sustain it pretty well. But I was just pointing out some of the major things.
One notable thing.
You don't have to go through skills charges and stuff. Like, that's kind of situational, and like, you should be using them anyways. It's just like the big damage boosts are going to be your Sharp Eyes, your weapon boost, your dual wield, your slayers, your Brave and Pride that are stackable on your innate strength. Like, that's huge for units.
Hey, Krypt, you were gonna say something?
I was gonna say that one notable thing about shit. What was it you were just talking about?
You were talking originally something about elemental attackers.
So I had 2 points. One about elemental. If you know you're going to have an elemental advantage on stuff, or if it is going to be very close to being weak, I really like the combination of the spell weak, which lowers all elemental resistances, and weak point boost, which gives you like a 30% boost to any elemental advantage you have, and stacking that with with Slayers, like the appropriate Slayer, is
It's so much
huge.
damage.
It's so much
And that's
damage.
why Lilibet is one of the best
she's so
we've
goofy good
seen
at everything.
at bursting bosses down, because she gets so many damage multipliers and damage cap increases when an enemy is weak to the earth element. So if you can make that boss or any enemy inherently weak, or just bring him down to 0, because then she makes him automatically weak.
Yeah, it's like -5.
She's dealing 20,000 damage caps times 2 every freaking hit. It's crazy.
It's pretty awesome.
It's one of the reasons I liked her so much in Arena for so long. Is not only is she very positionally independent, she also, like, you Giga Week the entire team, and all of a sudden she just obliterates everybody.
Yes.
Giga Week is unfortunately, I think, only available on, like, she has it innately, but it's on Theo. Yeah.
Yeah. Theo gang
But
for life.
yeah, no, she, in my opinion, she has one of the best, like, overall damage kits. It's extremely flexible. You can use it on almost any content. She's obviously one of the best, like, Goddess Kiss proc characters in the game, because she has built-in auto Omni Slayer, which is amazing. It's just so incredibly good that her auto attack hits for, like, cap damage. Throwing her in tower with the tower sword. She will literally cap everything.
She's unique
forever.
in that way. How hard her normal attack hits. That is not common.
Yeah, you really have to focus on it with a lot of other characters, but she gets it just, like, as a side effect of her passives and how wildly effective she is against anything with 0 to -100 Earth.
Yeah.
But I mean, weak in itself, like the spell weak, is extremely cheap. I think it's like 2 SC to equip, 2 or 3.
3.
It reduces all elemental weakness or all elemental resistances by 20. So if you are anything other than neutral, and their resistance is anything other than, like, already -100, that's pretty much like 20% less mitigation, or 20% bonus damage, or some combination of the two. I love weak, especially on, like, new accounts. It's pretty easily accessible because I believe it's on an SR and potentially even an R. And it's instant cast, so you don't have to have all kinds of crazy cast speed or anything. I had it on DB Ray on my free-to-play alt. I still do, in fact. And it just, any elemental DPS, it just increases by like 20-ish%, and that's sick for that little. And it helps everybody attacking the target, not only the unit that casts it. So there's a couple little, like, spells and stuff like that where it's like, okay, well, this isn't a passive, but for basically 2 clicks, you increase your DPS by a significant margin.
Well, speaking of casting, I see you're getting ready to jump into a multiplayer match.
I was just giving the people something to watch.
Something to watch. Well, after you get this, we can watch some obliteration, and then should we get into some mage, some special mage skills and determine.
The thing about mages is they're more important about their equipment than they are.
Okay.
Like, your instacast accessories, you're bread and butter for them, really.
Right. Yes, like the skill high level magic chant is something you want to take into consideration, obviously, if that unit already comes with it, or if you're going to need to add that, but it's pretty much a must. Look at those big old
if you're trying to get
numbers.
if you're trying to get to magic cap, like, magic aura is also extremely important, which is basically magic sharp eyes. Yeah, it increases costs to increase damage. At this point, though, there's only a couple mages that are worth anything. Like, by and large, this game is about PDPS right now.
It is.
But I mean, there are notable exceptions, like Lily and AOG Lily. If you've got Holy Bolt and the UR for her, she can be really, really strong and do a ton of damage real fast. Emilia is an incredible mage. Ice all the way, especially if you've got science magic, H2S. Sekis can be an incredible mage and is one of my favorite, not only mages, but units. Ironically, I like to build him PDPS. PDPS or science magic.
Yep.
But yeah, unfortunately, right now the state of mages is not great. Outside of those couple notable exceptions, I would just build a PDPS and then have somebody who can do a little bit of magic damage for your physical immune stages in the tower. In which case, you could just take death magic or death god or a character with an instant kill and just not even worry about magic at all.
You can get very cheesy with it, as I do every single tower stream with Alice.
Yeah.
But
I like to take Lagravos just because one
Apocalypse.
gigantic neutral,
Right.
neutral magic. It's so good.
Yes.
Fortunately, it's on one of the most flimsy mages we have.
Oh, dude, and he's insane because he's like melee, right? So the rest of his kit wants him to get into melee combat. And one thing you don't want to do when you're a little itty-bitty mage with very, very little HP is get all up in people's faces. But his AI is extremely, extremely aggressive and will just camp out under the boss or under the enemies.
Sadly.
Yeah.
But yes.
He's cool, though, and he's really fun to manual.
Right. Yes, obviously magic damage is far it's far below the effectiveness of physical type damage. But it can have its uses. And like you said, I just wanted to highlight a little bit for people that are building it. And you never know when we could get the balance at any point in the future. I don't know how they would accomplish it. But, still think it's something to note to highlight some skills when you're looking at a character. Are they going to be good? Can they be a good caster with things like you said, magic aura and science magic in particular is pretty much the only. H2S is really the only relevant.
So science magic
spell.
is probably the strongest magic in the game. Pretty much collab magic, right? Because it doesn't have collab magic does not have the distinction of being usually, besides 3,700 years, collab magic does not have map-wide effects, which make them non-stackable. So the fact that they don't have the map-wide effects, they're stackable.
The fact that it's not map-wide means that it doesn't trigger Ruuto's passive, by the way. He does not reduce the damage from science magic on your team.
Oh my gosh.
Because it doesn't target everyone.
Any of these things that say no TS or not non-time stop or whatever the heck it means nowadays, it just means you can't stack them with each other.
No tramp stamp.
You cast one, you can't then immediately cast another.
Yep, you can't spam them. You essentially just can't spam them. So what's cool about the science magic is that there's a lot of multipliers in the game that work with those elements specifically, as well as being science magic multipliers on like arcs and equipment such as the science flag, and that's essentially the strongest magic in the game.
There's also unique ways to boost the cast time of science magic, which, as we talked about, is very, very important. Having that instant cast speed, being able to drop stuff one right after another. Hey, my game crashed. One right after another, right after another is real, real strong. So like Light of Science is really great, and even that new arc that everybody hates from the collab, 100 Nights, 1,000 Nights, 100 Skies, whatever it is. That's actually very good for science casters. But people hate that art.
But the thing is, Magic doesn't get the love that physical DPS does, with the amount of skills that multiply into it. The only things that you're going to be looking for with Magic is it, as opposed to physical DPS, who can be built, some units can be built strength or intelligence, being built for damage. There's only one way to build for Magic, and that's through intelligence. You're going to need your auras, your moonlights, your reinforces to boost that intelligence, because those are actually very strong when doing magic damage. But, I mean, in general, you're going to be wanting to focus on pretty much one element, and then you're going to be just wanting stacking boosts and high boosts. Like, There's really not much to it. You're gonna be wanting those. You're gonna be like Archangel Blessing is great for wave battles. You're gonna want your poses, like your pose of honor, to get MP back when you kill an enemy. And some of these conditionals do apply, like Sky High does apply, Surprise Attack applies, Terra Mel apply with to Magic too, which is great. Maglion does not, unfortunately. But you're gonna need high level Magic Chant. That's pretty much a guarantee
Must.
for any Magic caster. Yeah, that's plus 20% Magic cast speed. Like you're gonna want it. I mean, but then you don't really need high boosts. Like you don't really need that stuff. Honestly,
You don't need
yes,
staff
there's
high
staff
boost.
high boost nowadays. Like, but you don't. You really don't need it. Spell linkage is good if you're going to be using a bunch of the same spell. I mean, you don't need any of the skill
Which you
charges.
usually do, right?
Right.
Like, if you're
Right.
spamming magic, you're usually going to be casting the same thing over and over, which,
Yep.
incidentally, as it turns out, real good with science magic. Go
Yep.
fucking figure.
Yep.
Go figure!
Magic Aura is fantastic for 9SC. It's, what, 50% damage for 25% increased?
Mm-hmm.
Or is it 75% damage for 50% increase? Something like that, but that's one of the better skills for Magic. And then you have like a couple conditional ones down here. Like I know some of the old skills that we had for mana, Secret of Mana was this like Wisp Time. We got Holy Night Radiance in these. These are both like, you know, during the time of day, Shades Time during the time of day, and then you got like Contract with Puck that multiplies.
Magic Aura just for ice.
Yeah.
AOG Lily
pretty much.
has those mega boosts.
Well, she doesn't have the Mega Boost. You actually have to teach her those.
Oh, you're right. That's on the Lily Matter arc.
Yep.
It sure is.
So
Light and
Sure
dark
is.
even
Mega-
harder to get.
Hope you got the UR. Yeah.
JK.
But there's plenty of magic boosting skills in the game. They're a little bit rarer and harder to find than physical DPS skills that you can use. But
PDPS is just so prevalent.
It is.
But like, the thing is with magic, it's a lot less fun to play with. In my personal opinion, it's a lot less fun to play with
Yeah.
because it just is, right? Like, I don't love just sitting there and spamming a spell and then just sitting there and waiting for it to go through. Like, I want to be jumping in, attacking stuff, like using skills constantly, like having a good time playing the game.
Magic doesn't flow very well.
Magic doesn't really make it fun unless it's like a timed thing. So one of the biggest reasons Magic is useful is for its map-wide effects, which help kill things very fast if they have relatively low HP, right? Which is very useful in time trials.
Time
Which I don't know if
trials.
anyone else knows, like the meta for many of the time trials is going to be AOG Lily's Starburst, which is a ridiculous hitting magic damage or magic spell that hits map wide and just crushes everything. Well,
Yeah.
it doesn't do
Crunches everything, including your frames.
it doesn't do. So here's what it doesn't do. It doesn't do an absurd amount of damage, but it does enough damage to kill most things that are in time trials in one go. Like the mobs, right? What you can't do with physical DPS is hit all the mobs at once, like you can with that. So like that's just like one little niche thing that Magic is very good at.
I was also going to say
but
for auto farming, if you don't have
for
V.
auto farming, sure, yes, that is also another good way to use it. Now the AI is pretty stupid and will only reliably use magic spells if an enemy is weak to them on the map. And that's a big reason why it's kind of tough to watch your AI sit there and not cast a spell for a while, because they don't have that like initial like flag in order to send out a spell. And that's a big reason why when the ReZero collab came out, the Gaze of the End, which decreased immediately as the battle started, decreases like an enemy's resistance by 10, was huge because you could now farm IGC3 relatively reliably with a mage, and because they had some of their elements were now weak, and a mage would reliably use a spell. Like I know for a fact that we used
I specifically used Amelia with 3,700 years.
Yeah.
Which is an Earth spell, but if you had Gaze of the End on, she would actually cast it pretty much instantly. Because they were weak. And it was like, that's like one of the main things. But again, that's a collab thing. Like, we're not going to have that all the time. So Mage AI is pretty stupid in this game.
Yeah.
I remember seeing Jawline built Vaughn to instant clear IGC 3 with 3,700 years. And I was just like so beside myself when I saw it. I was like, how did you get him
That's
to
hilarious.
do that?
Zero Plays also did that in a video. He was showcasing how Dante can become your IGC3 clearer.
Right, with enough SC, you
3,700
can make
years.
anyone
Yeah.
capable of clearing IGC3 with
Right.
3,700 years.
Right. So the
Yeah,
real
so funny.
the real takeaway is that how do you build your mages? You turn them into physical attackers.
Yeah. Or just like, maybe don't.
Or just don't. It's
How do you
just-
build a mage? Just wait.
Wait until they're
It's,
more relevant.
Mages are tough, man. They have like a very niche spot in this game right now because
For
they're
sure.
just really not that useful, and they're kind of boring, right?
Yeah.
And they
Like,
kind of beg to be manual
yeah,
Yeah.
because the AI is not
Well-
going to act appropriately.
I would say actually the most optimal mage build is what you do for PvP. Very quick, cheap flinch
I
casting.
mean, sure,
Like
but,
control.
like, that's
Control
like-
casting.
it's
For sure.
Still, yeah, that's like a whole different aspect of mages. Though. Like that's
Sure.
like you don't even have to use mages for that. Like that's the thing. Like you
That's
don't
true.
like quote unquote mage, right? Like you just have to have enough cast speed and have the set of perfectly as
Right.
a battle
Right.
spell, and they'll cast that shit.
Mm-hmm.
Like, yeah, but building mages for damage is not really like a necessary thing right now, unless you're doing time trials. That's it.
Right. Yeah, I saw
Time
Dr.
trials,
Lucas
not
Who's
farming,
video
that's
as well.
Pretty much it. Even auto farming, or auto running, you're not going to be building for
Mhm.
like max damage. You're just building for enough damage to put it out there.
Your stream imploded, buddy.
It did. Demos
It did.
did confirm that Slayer plus special boost is 100% total.
Yeah, and I think I knew that a long time ago. It was just like we haven't discussed it in a very long time, and Lake is just the champion, so of course he has that
Mhm.
information on hand.
So it's 50,
Um,
50
So-
not 50 times 1.5.
Yeah, that
Interesting.
makes total.
The-
It makes total sense, and that's what I remember seeing. But I don't know. For some reason I always remember hearing that it was 75 like after the fact, and I was like, whatever. Even if it's 75, even if it is 100, like I'm glad I would be underestimating, right?
Right.
I'm still gonna put it on, even if it was 75. You know.
Before we move on from mages, Zergramps did mention here in the comments, and it is actually, I think, really important when you're controlling your mage AI is actually using Elder King Mask.
If you need them to not jump in like idiot Lagerbos,
Right.
Yes.
Except his auto's still gonna make him jump in.
I
you
know,
you
right?
cannot stop Lagerbos from getting under enemies. It's
Right.
impossible.
Right.
He will never
Yeah.
just stand still and cast. That's not who he
It
is.
so that is one of the better, especially if a unit already has auto recast like Sage Zekis or Amelia or Senku. It is very nice for them to not have to like run. I guess Senku doesn't reposition himself the skills, but to have Amelia or Zekis not run around and use skills because you can just have them cast magic. It is nice. It's one of the better accessories in the game just because of that.
To control your mage
Skills
AI.
can't be used at all, and I really like it on regular tech builds as well. So
Yes, V or Gen.
yes, anyway, it does have multiple uses, which is nice. But but then again, here's the thing: I don't even besides arena. Mages don't make it out of my life. Besides arena and like tower, right? So like tower, I just use them just to make it easy. I don't like.
Just bring one.
You're right. Like it's like
Token
save-
mage.
Save Zekis, cool. Well, let's just use them. But no, mages don't really see the light of day for most content, just because their single target DPS in boss battles just isn't there.
Yep.
Sure, if you want to spam AOG Lily or AOG Lily's Holy Bolt, but like that's very situational when you're going to be able to use that.
And less fun than just spamming physical skills.
I agree.
For sure.
Totally agree.
100%.
All
right.
Yeah.
No, that's good. I'm happy with that on mages. So, moving on from that, the last role, which kind of can be split now into two different builds now that Ruuto's in the game, but support, right? Your support units, aka either Spirit Maiden Theria or Ruuto.
I mean, essentially your non-damaging units, right? Like, what are they going to be doing? Are they going to be multiplying the damage of your current units? Are they going to be cutting or mitigating the damage incoming from the enemy? And a lot
We've
of
certainly
them are
got like offensive or defensive support. Because even within that, there's like more subdivision. Because if we're counting Ruuto, then we're kind of also counting like tank in support, right? In that he supports the rest of the party by mitigating the damage they take by making stuff target him.
Yep.
He is also just a great support in general because he doesn't get flinched by magic. So in regular content or in like arena, when everybody else is, getting blown into the air by Grand Cross or interrupted by Blizzard or, whatever, Ruto's just chilling. He's just standing there. He's just hanging out, casting heals.
For support, I divided them into pretty much 4 roles: healer, buffer, debuffer, tank, and your goal is to make a hybrid of some sort with those 4 categories.
So can I start off with buffer and debuffer first?
For sure.
Because I think specifically for buffer, right? Buffers are going to be the best buffers in the game are going to be the ones that have those innate boosts or those innate buffs for the party. Like Senku's elemental buff for the party that gives bonus damage, or like
Zekis even in that way.
Or Zekis, sure, a little bit of Zekis.
And Killy.
But like units, what makes a buffer stand out from the rest, right? It's going to be their unique things, because you can make pretty much with the cast speed of buffing, which you need 0 for. You can make pretty much anyone a buffer or debuff.
Sure.
If you have the spells, like you can give pretty much anyone a Metis phaser or like a Fort phaser or like Grand Brave and like stuff like that. Like you can just give them things to amplify their units. But like what's really, really going to set them apart is what they do for the rest of the party uniquely. And I think that's what makes the best supports different than like the mediocre ones. So we all know who the best support is. The best defensive support is going to be M Theria. Like, it's not even a question.
Not even close.
So, like, we don't really need to go into defensive supports there. She just provides so much unique damage mitigation as well as the healing barrier and all that kind of stuff. Like, she is so far and away unique and so much better than every single defensive support in the game. It's disgusting.
Because she's an entire set of defensive passives for your team, right? She comes with all the walls. That's all your elemental resistances that you can, tailor to whatever event you're playing. She's got barrier, which is very unique and gives flinch resistance. She's got feint resistance just built in.
Feint nil. Like
feint nil for your entire party.
It's crazy.
As long as she's alive.
But like, the main buffers in the game, right? Like we have main buffers and debuffers, right? Actually, how do you start this off?
Tinku, Tinkilis.
In a sense, though, buffers and debuffers can be similar to the same thing, right? Because if you're buffing yourself or debuffing the enemy, that's kind of the same thing.
You're achieving the same.
Because
net is around the same.
Net, right? So like, if you're using a Stinkily, if you nuke the enemy's defense in mind, that's going to be a huge offensive buff to your team. Like, she is one of the best debuffers / buffers in the game because she does apply those huge debuffs. Like, she is everything. She has all the high drains, right? Or the yeah, she does. She is impressive. But like that's why I kind of put those in the same category, just because like you can throw the generic spells on them, like the drains, the blazers,
Right.
the auras, braves, speed and all that kind of stuff, and buff your team. But the ones that are going to separate from the pack are the ones that have those unique traits and abilities. So, I mean, Stinky's probably Stinkily and Yen are probably the two best debuffers in the game. Yen coming with both super bad chemicals as well as the extremely bad chemical as well as glass record makes him one of
that glass record built in.
All
that
around.
was such a surprise.
Disgusting.
Mm-hmm.
It kind of makes sense.
These three debuffs right here are some of the best in the game. Minus 35 to the all elemental res. This is minus 25. Both use these. This is minus 25 to every single stat of the enemy. And then glass record.
Sadly,
are you saying that once again science magic is some of the best?
Right.
Weird,
Color me surprised.
Right.
Weird.
Sadly, the weak and bad chemical do not stack.
They do not stack because they are the same icons.
Yep.
Yes.
But bad chemicals like better.
It is better. But it's kind of nutty that the fact that and we've before probably about a year ago was when we still never no one ever needed to use debuffs ever. We just didn't have the content for it. Like there was no really tough content.
Mm-hmm.
I honestly think the first time I even used debuffs was like the Roland event against like the 5 Battle Lords.
Oh yeah, I remember that.
I think that's like the first time I was like, wait, I'm scraping for damage here. Like, what do I do? And then I was like, oh, Giga Nemesis. Like, why not? Like, throw something.
Yeah, Giga Nemesis and then time stop magic all the way through.
Yeah, right. And I was just like, wait, like, holy crap, this is so efficient and effective, right? And it was just like the advantages that come with bringing a support or like specifically a buffer and debuffer on your team is incredible. And that's one of the big reasons, like for PvE content, I also build my own Theria with debuff skills on her because it just amplifies. It decreases the damage taken, so the damage mitigation of your entire team by 1,000,000%. Not by 1,000,000%, obviously exaggerating, but also increasing the damage potential of your team just by debuffing their defensive mind. Like it's kind of impressive as to how much effect a simple debuff spell will take. I don't know.
I agree.
Some of my favorite units are in this game are supports just because they're essentially enablers, right? Like they amplify the damage as well as just helping you play the game and not hating yourself.
Not didn't realize how good debuffing was, and because I knew buffing was important, right? Like that's an easy one. I know Brave is good. I use it. I get bigger numbers. Awesome. I didn't really realize how good all the debuffs were until I was struggling with Pablo, and somebody was like, "Oh yeah, just take my my Summerton Killy," because I didn't have her at that point. And I was like, "Well, what's she gonna do for me there?" They're like, "Oh, just cast all the debuffs. Watch." Right. And I did, and his ult, instead of doing like 9,000 damage, did like 70. It's like, I'm sorry, what? Like, yeah. What? Are you kidding me?
And that's,
how did I not know this?
A lot to do with us, like, not having the... I mean, yes, we understand how, like, around how the damage formula works, but we don't know the specifics of it, right?
Right.
So, when it's... And I can't even begin to explain why, but essentially, the closer the damages or the stats are together of you and the enemy, the less damage it's going to do. Like, so those like little 20%, 25%, 35% debuffs can drop a damage down by like 95%.
It's so crazy.
It's absolutely
so wild.
Yep.
By the way that the debuffs work and the way the damage formula is, it just can absolutely nuke an enemy's damage potential.
Support are the sleeper like MVPs in this game. It also takes an extremely long time for support to get power crept, because they each kind of have their own unique niche within that role that they fulfill. Like Sinku, even before his buff, was still really, really good because he's not only a damage buffer, he just buffs elemental damage by being in the party. He's also an SCT support. His ult gives skill timer. One of his skills is a heal. That can give skill timer by way of spirit breath. So it takes a really, really long time for supports to not be good. I mean, even like Tinkili in the right, like
Even
base
Tinkili,
Tinkili in the correct,
still holds one
like,
of the best passives in the game.
yeah, it's super wild. Oh, hey, my game crashed again. By the way, for the past 30 or 40 minutes, all I've been doing is fast tours of the
I'm so sorry.
thing. It's crashed. Oh, I'm done with them. I'm doing this just to teach Medine stuff real quick.
Yep.
Oh, real quick. That sounds
Because it is kind of effective for that. But my game has crashed twice in the half hour that I've been doing it. And by the way, I haven't even made it through enough to clear the last node.
Yep.
So if it had been on 0, I wouldn't have even finished it yet. And I've been doing this for half an hour.
God.
This event sucks.
On a side note of debuffers and buffers, right? I think the most obvious showcase of seeing how effective a debuffer is a little selfless plug here, but that Galanova video I put out, of me literally taking Galanova's ult straight to the face on Sevilla, the amount of debuffs that went into that, and I know my first... Krypt, you were there the first time that I took down Galanova.
Yeah, I was.
And I was like, holy hell. And those first two ults were hitting so hard, and I was like, wait, why don't I just bring a debuffer? Because, he was hitting me for, those first two ults were just, nuking my health. And then when I put literally one high strength debuff, High Blazer, on Galanova, he hit for, 30.
No way.
I mean, have you seen that video, Buddha? Because it's pretty ridiculous.
I haven't seen your Galanova clear. I remember watching you live stream your attempts when you first were doing it, and you had 2 revives on G Luke, and the dude was ulting 3 times and killing you each one.
Ulted and ulted and ulted and ulted.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you were there for that. So
I was there for
that was so funny.
Debuff. That's it.
Yeah, right. You put a debuff on him, and
you know what's funny? At the
easy.
time, I was bringing Lena, G Luke, and Logia, and I was I didn't even realize, because I thought it was just permanent on the units. I didn't even realize you could use Stinkily. And I was just
right, because now we know
she makes it so easy.
Yeah, like Krypt said, it's canonically dead units that you can bring. That's the theme.
Yeah. And I didn't know that at the time, but the amount of utility that supports truly bring to this game is incredible. They're very overlooked when people are building units, because people for the flashy stuff, the big DPSers or the big magic spells and all that kind of stuff. But there's a big reason why we say Saintly Maiden Theria is Spirit Maiden Theria is the best unit in the game. Is because she is the absolute best support in every scenario. Man, she's so good. Stinky is so by far the best debuffer. And then even debuffs, not necessarily even debuffs, but ailments, talking ailments. V, just as a support, being that Anula Melth, stunning, cursing, silencing, blinding to decrease the damage intake, that's another whole aspect of support.
Status ailments for sure. I'd maybe group that in debuff. Debuff role.
That's kind of a small little niche territory.
Yeah.
But it's super effective whenever you get a really good one like V or Logia to use.
I mean, control is a kind of support, right?
Yeah.
Because again, it's all about either mitigating incoming damage or maximizing damage through Terramelf.
Right.
Terramelf with an enabler is one of the cheapest sources of huge damage.
Great.
Yeah. So yeah. Buff and debuff, I guess you can group that into one little category in itself. But then to wrap it up, I don't know if we can if there are really any key skills or main things you'd want to point out in regards to healer, and obviously with Ruuto we have the new tank.
So that's the thing for healing. Your main two things that you're going to be wanting to use, and let's just say PvE content, because Arena is a little bit more specific. Like that's more like God Heal, Stardust Heal, Last Record, Healing Wind, like that kind of stuff. But your main heals in PvE are going to be God Heal, and that's pretty much it. Like you don't need much else at all,
right,
in PvE except God Heal. Of course, you could run other stuff like Healing Wind and
I like Stardust.
And Stardust Heal's great. Even I love Glass Record. I use it as my only heal for Theria because I run full physical DPS teams all the time. So, but I mean, you're gonna be wanting like, who cares about all these cures? Like, just use one cure all. Like, cure all of signs. Like you have it. I think cure all's on Arch of Saints. I don't remember.
Cure all
Resurrection
is
spell. Handing Resurrection spell's good. Miracle of Fluid's the best, in my opinion, because it brings you back to 50%. But obviously, not many people are going to be having that.
If you're starting now. Yeah.
Wait, is Miracle Fluid more effective than regular Resurrection?
Absolutely.
Even though they cost the same amount?
Yes.
See, I didn't know that shit.
Miracle Fluid is coming back to 50% HP. Resurrection's like 10.
Bruh. Okay,
That's
well,
wild.
that changes things.
But it does.
Catch me in the arena. No.
Resurrection does allow you to proc Awaken if you have it. Actually, you know what? Don't quote me on that, because I don't know if you have to have being brought down there, or if you just enter that at 10%, like it actually procs. Don't quote me on that, because I don't actually remember that one.
I mean, I feel like usually that goes off before you die.
Magic.
Anyway.
I don't use damage magic unless I have to. But then we get into all these debuffs. My favorite buff in the game is Metis Phaser, because I'm usually running a physical DPS team, and they all need Metis to increase their Proc Force heals to an absolute shitload. So this is one of my favorite skills. One of my other favorite ones is Fort Phaser, just because the defensive capabilities of it is that's just a very strong buff. Recast is great, and then you get to like the debuffs. Like, these are all very, very good, and even like the minus 20% is still very worthwhile using.
How good is slow, Tweacz?
What?
I said, but how good is slow?
Not that good.
It's so bad. It's so useless. I was so excited, and it's so bad.
So, well, the reason we thought it was going to be great is because we wanted it to do the amount of slow debuff that Stinkili's S2 does.
Right.
It does not.
Which is, what, like minus 75% speed, which is like a standard debuff, just absolutely ridiculous. But no, it only decreases your movement speed by 1, which is, in the whole scheme of things, not much at all. And it's not.
You're looking at like at best it's like 25%, right? If they're sitting on 4 movement, or I guess like
right. It's pretty bad.
Up
honestly.
to 50 if they're on like 2, but there are very, very few units that are that slow already.
Mm-hmm.
And if they're already that slow, it's not a problem.
Right. But I mean, then you get these are some of the best skills, best spells in the game. Again, Science Magic, Super Bad Chemical, Super Drain and Fatigue. Come innately on Gen.
And those are like compounded debuffs as well, which is nice, because you're not just doing mind. You get both of them at the same time. So less casting, more time to spam DPS skills on your PDPS.
And then again, like, nothing's really crazy down here. It's just like walls are going to be used for specific content. Circles are going to be used for specific content. And then you got your nulls if you're running. You throw in a null if you're running an ailment user, and then weak if you need it. Like, nothing crazy. But supports are... The beautiful thing about supports is they're very you can tailor them specifically to the battle you're fighting very, very easily.
Mm-hmm. And especially...
then most of your stuff, most of your SC can go into, like, HP ups or MP ups and magic ups and all that kind of stuff. Like,
keep them alive.
You don't need to build them for anything except for give them some spells, which is cool.
And again, like, Theria specifically is so complete out of the box that, like, she needs very, very little. to become just a fully functional, healer, just to come online.
Yep.
You can tailor her to basically anything, though. Like, your science magic spam or your additional buffs and all that, because she's just got, like, crap tons of open SC.
Yeah, people ask me how to build Theria, and I just say, unlock her ability board.
Yeah,
That's all you need to do.
Ability board, that's it. You're good.
I mean, pretty much, she's literally the best healer in the game out of the box.
Hands down.
Yep.
Hands down. She's got everything. She's got your God heal. She's got your cure all. She's got resurrection. Both. You can put a res on someone before they even die if you want to. And then all of her elemental walls. So anything you would have to tailor her for, like for example Pablo, you want to bring firewall built into her kit, so you can just check. She's got her magic castle, I think, comes in her kit, so she can
magic castle and grand protection.
Mm-hmm. So all of your magic and physical damage reduction is covered there.
Which stack with the other stuff.
She even has a neutral damage reduction spell, which I didn't know existed. I guess didn't until she had it.
She comes with every mitigation that you need.
It's so wild.
Zero investment from other arts and other skills. So, yeah, she is insane. And then, I mean, with Ruuto, I do want to touch on him because he's introduced now the most meta type of tank build that we've seen from a unit thus far.
The only type of tank build.
I mean, he's essentially the only usable tank in the game right now, because anyone else is not going to have his. I mean, what have you wanted on a tank? That's on Ruuto. A goddamn taunt. Like,
yes, sir.
That is so good for. I mean, yes, PvP, sure, but for PvE, it doesn't really matter about PvE, but it's very useful.
The best thing about him in PvE that I've noticed is with his taunt, you can then just control the map. You can bring enemies together and nuke them with one skill.
Right. I mean,
but yeah, it's not the most efficient thing, but that's what I like.
Yeah, the thing about it is with most battles in PvE, you're gonna be able to just stomp through them with physical DPS anyways.
Correct.
It's just
he provides a gather, like his S1 pulls stuff in, right? It pulls it in front of him.
Yeah.
His S2 brings stuff to him. Like it's positional control.
Yep.
I love bringing him.
Is what he provides.
I love bringing him in farming maps. Because he can just group
gather
everything together, and then Yashimaru can one-tap everything.
And he does 0 damage, so you don't have to worry about him stealing kills.
Exactly. Kind of niche, but yes, I just want
very niche and very, very PvP meta. But I mean,
so obviously with him, skills like I mean, we talked about him for an entire podcast. So if you want to see what skills to put on him, you can go watch a whole hour of because he really is the definition, like you said, the only true tank we've seen in this game.
Yeah, for real, he is the only true tank we've had in this game so far.
So yeah,
I mean,
I'll put a little redirection link to his podcast if you want to get more info.
If you would
on
like
tank.
further.
Yeah.
It's like the Starship Troopers thing. Would you like to learn more?
Yes, exactly. You'll see that in the corner pop up. Cool. Guys, closing thoughts.
This event is cool except for the tour thing.
Which is the
But the tour thing is worth doing because the last reward you get from clearing the entire event is a flag that increases physical damage by 10 or is it 10%? 20% for 10 seconds.
For 10 seconds.
Yeah.
And
it's an accessory. I thought it was a weapon.
No.
I was like, oh, that's okay for a weapon, but like, okay, I don't want to use my weapon slot for that. And then like I finally got it yesterday. I was like, wait.
Mm-hmm.
This is an accessory?
Yeah,
it's pretty
it's awesome.
Must have.
Yeah, it's definitely a must go for, like, within the whole scheme of things. It's very strong as an accessory. Where is it? Yeah, it's very strong.
Yeah, super good. Probably the best thing out of this event.
Oh yeah, 100%. And this will be there's always something within each event that has longevity, right? This is it.
Mm-hmm.
This will be useful from here on out
in any team build.
Quick clear.
Yep, for
Yeah.
quick clears.
Yeah. Multiplayer
I mean,
one
obviously
tap
not that
bosses.
useful in boss battles, but if you're gonna go steamroll something, you'll want it.
Yeah.
Honorable mention to the anchor as well that we got. R.I.P.
Yeah, solid
auspicious. R.I.P. auspicious envelope.
I mean, strong strength. It's funny though. Strong strength boost too. Like 55 strength is nothing to laugh at.
It's also got ice resistance on it, which is notably important for. I believe there's a tour, like a
It's
regular
pretty strong.
tour, where you're gonna want ice resistance on your units for suitability.
Yeah, I
So
need
that's
to-
very useful.
I've got a whole tour guide I want to make, but
Captain Jabberwock has a really great tour guide.
Does he?
Oh
Yeah.
yeah, since forever
I
now.
might just-
Very, very.
But I mean,
very
it's
good.
it's all like text and stuff though. So if you want to make like a video or something, that would probably help a lot of
obviously,
people.
I would highlight it all because
Yeah.
his definition of a guide is going to far outweigh mine, so that's probably a good decision.
He's a good man
Yeah.
and thorough.
Captain Jabberwock is
Very, very thorough.
another
yes.
goat. He's a goat up there with Lake, in my opinion.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
He's getting
Resource
there, yeah,
provider.
for sure. Very good resource provider.
for sure. So, in the meantime, we will just wait for the next big thing to come around. I know, is this the old, like, when does I forgot the closing date for the 3 million download. Is it sometime in June?
I think it's the next week, isn't it?
Is that really when, like, I thought it
I
ran
feel like
into
that shit
June.
goes on for like 20 days.
I
Yeah.
think it's like, it's almost a month of
Go into the events
stuff.
Tweacz, yeah.
Yeah, let's
Right
check
there.
it. Just because I'm hoping they
June
bring
9th.
some more stuff. What'd you say, the 9th?
Part 2, June 9th. Yeah.
Okay, so I guess we'll wait another week.
Yeah, it's here for a month, but we're almost 2 weeks in. We're
Yeah.
a little over a week in.
It's just very slow. We've which is okay. I'm fine with that. We just came through months and months of non-stop hype and
Non-stop grind.
non-stop grind and content. You know, we need these little breaks to catch up on just general grinds that we all need to do. So I'm not mad at it for that reason.
I miss Super Soul accumulation already.
It always
Yes.
comes and goes
Yes.
so quick.
I miss it very much.
So quick. So hopefully we'll get more good stuff coming in the near future. And I think that's all we got for you this time, guys. So thank you all for coming out. Thank you to my co-hosts, as always, for being the pros.
Thanks
that
for having us.
Help me, and yeah, of course. Anytime, guys, anytime. So with that being said, y'all know what we say. Work hard, play harder. See you in the next podcast.